Hi friends, welcome to Teddy Medical Trials. Today we are going to see the anatomical localization of stroke, okay, on a arterial basis. So, 70 years old male, diabetic hypertensive, weakness of right side of body, facial deviation towards the left when he woke up from sleep. The weakness worsened as the day progressed. History of TIA 3 weeks back, no other significant history. On examination, vitals normal, higher functions normal. Cranial nerve only, right facial nerve palsy, human type. And power is 2 by 5 in right side and plantar right side extensor. Otherwise, sensory, cerebellar, cranial spine, and other systems are normal. So, what do you get from this case, dear friends? A 70 years old male, right sided weakness after he woke up. Okay, and there is history of TIA, and this has progressed also. So, what is your inference, guys? So, first thing regarding a stroke is a functional diagnosis. So, this is a cerebrovascular accident, right? And the right hemiparesis. Agreed? Yes. So now, where can you localize this? It can be either in one of the four, right? Left cortex, left coronary radiata, left internal capsule, and left brain stem. So where are you going to localize? See, first, is it a left cortical lesion? The rule of thumb, if there is a cortical lesion, the cortical sensations will be lost. Okay, what are the cortical sensations? 2 point discrimination, graphesthesia, stereognosis, all these will be lost. The cortical sensations will be lost. In our case, all the cortical sensations are present. Sensory system was normal. So it's not in the cortex, okay? The brainstem, okay? The next brainstem. Coming back to brainstem, if there is a brainstem issue, there will be cranial nerves involved. In the midbrain, there is a third and fourth nerve, and pons there's a 5, 6, 7, and up for the eighth belongs to both the pons and medulla, the other lower cranial 9, 10, 11, 12 will be involved. In our case, there was no significant cranial nerve involvement, and those cranial nerve from the brainstem will be a element type, not human type. Okay, there is no element type of cranial nerve involvement in our case. So the cortex is ruled out, brainstem is ruled out. Next is the coronary radiata. If it's a coronary radiata, there will be a differential involvement of the upper and lower limb. Okay, what are the other antonym for differential? The opposite of differential involvement is dense hemiplegia. What is the meaning of dense hemiparesis? Dense meaning equal involvement of upper and lower limb. Let it be 2 by 5 power, 3 by 5 power, or 5 by 5, or 0 by 5. Equal involvement of upper and lower limb is called as dense hemiparesis. Okay. So if it's 5 by 5, it's normal. Okay. Anything less than 5 is hemiparesis. If 0, it's hemiplegia. So in coronary radiata, since the fibers are very dispersely present, this kind of equal involvement is pretty rare. It can happen, but it's pretty rare. In internal capsule, these fibers are condensed. So any infarct there can produce a equal involvement of upper and lower limbs. So our case has a equal involvement of upper and lower limb. So more likely in the left internal capsule. So severe right hemiparesis with human facial nerve palsy, lesion involving the left internal capsule, possibly due to a thrombus. Why it's thrombosis? Because the weakness was progressive over the day. And in the lenticulostriate branch of middle cerebral artery. So how do you diagnose the lenticulostriate branch of middle cerebral artery? So that is today's presentation. Okay, let's go. So this is the arterial supply of brain, dear friends. Starting from the aortic arch, the right side gives rise to the brachiocephalic, and that gives rise to the right subclavian and right common carotid. Okay. From the left, the common carotid arises from the arch of aorta. From the common carotid, right common carotid branches into right internal carotid and external carotid. The same happens for the left side. The internal carotid artery enters the base of skull through the foramen lacerum. Okay. So this internal carotid artery, as you can see, it goes just up. I'll zoom this picture for you, dear friends. The topmost part alone. Okay. Concentrate. The topmost part is zoomed here. Okay. Going back. See this? I'm just zooming the topmost part. This one. Did you get that? The topmost part is zoomed here. Fine. So this is the entrance of the internal carotid artery. the internal carotid artery divides into, this is called as middle cerebral artery. So this portion is called as anterior cerebral artery. Okay, so this is middle cerebral artery, this is anterior cerebral artery. All the main arteries which we are going to see is going to get divided into 1 and 2 parts. Okay, middle cerebral artery is going to be divided by M1 and M2. Anterior cerebral artery will be divided as A1 and A2. Posterior cerebral artery will be divided as P1 and P2. Fine. So this area is called as A1, anterior communicating artery part 1. Okay, so this anterior communicating artery is divided into A1 and A2 by anterior communicating artery. Can you see the anterior communicating artery? Yes. So that divides the anterior cerebral artery into A1 and A2. Okay, so this is A1, this is A2. Come again, this is A1, this is A2. These are divided by anterior communicating artery. So now there is a clot here at the A1 level. What will be the presentation? It's simple and easy, friends. As you can see in this picture, when one side of A1 is blocked, blood from the other side can flow through this side also. Okay, so absolutely there will not be any clinical symptoms or signs at all in unilateral A1 block. So what is this? There is a block in the A2. Now what will be the presentation? If A2 is blocked, that part of the brain supplied by the A2 will get affected. Okay, so we should know what part of brain does the A2 supplies. So this is the brain, lateral surface and medial surface, and you can see the yellow color determines the anterior cerebral artery distribution. You can see that the frontal area is involved and one thin strip of the medial side of the lateral surface is involved and the medial surface anterior is involved, right? So the frontal and a thin strip on the lateral surface and most of the medial surface, right? So when you cut it, it becomes like this. You can see the frontal surface and the thin strip of the lateral. So what are the organs or the parts of body does that area supply? This is our homunculus, and you can see that the leg is the organ or the part of the body which is supplied by the thin strip which is shown, that is covered by the ACA, anterior cerebral artery A2. So now coming back, so if there is a block in A1, no symptoms because the opposite side artery can supply. When there is a block in A2, that part of brain supplied by A2 will be affected. So which is the part of brain? The frontals and a thin strip over the lateral. So according to the homunculus, it is the leg area. Okay, so for the frontal, it's abulia, lack of interest, dyscalculia, social disinhibition. They will even urinate in the public. And frontal releasing reflexes and crural monoplegia. Opposite side lower limb will be involved. There will be weakness in the opposite side lower limb. So now coming back to the primary subject, dear friends. When cortex is involved, cortical sensation will be absent. Never forget this ever. Okay. So, so here the cortex is involved, and since it's a A2 territory, opposite side leg weakness will be present along with absent cortical sensation in the opposite leg. Okay. Certain people will have this artery. Okay. This is called as artery of Hubner's. This Hubner starts from A2, and this supplies that part of internal capsule which takes care of the opposite face and hands. I mean the upper limb, face and upper limb. So now a easy question comes. When there is a block in artery of Hubner, what will happen? The face and upper limb of the opposite will be affected. Simple. Now tell me, dear friends, this artery of Hubner supplies the internal capsule. Okay, cortex is not affected. So how will be the presentation? Face and upper limb will be affected. I mean motor weakness will be present, but cortical sensations will be intact because cortex is not affected. Only internal capsule is affected. Okay. So faciobrachial monoplegia. What if there is a block here in A2 proximal to the artery of Hubner? So A2 is also affected. The artery of Hubner is also affected. Then how will be the presentation? Okay. It's very easy. It's like 1 plus 1 is 2, right? So when A2 is affected, you told the opposite side lower limb will be affected. Yes. When artery of Hubner is affected, face and upper limb will be affected. Yes. So here A2 and artery of Hubner both are affected. So what will be the presentation? Opposite side lower limb, opposite upper limb and face. So basically it's a hemiparesis. But if you watch very keenly, dear friends, lower limb, the opposite lower limb is affected at the cortical level. So cortical sensations will be absent in the lower limb. But the face and upper limb are involved by the primary internal capsule, not the cortex. So cortical sensation will be intact in the face and upper limb, but absent in the lower limb. Okay, so this will be the presentation of this kind of block in A2. So this block at the A2 level, along with the artery of Hubner, is the frontal abulia, dyscalculia, social disinhibition, frontal releasing reflexes, and cruel monoplegia, plus the faciobrachial monoplegia. So it's an hemiplegia. Okay. In some individuals, the A1 can be congenitally absent. Okay. What will be the symptoms? As you already know, one side A1 block will not produce any symptoms as far as the other side supplies. Now, in such individuals where A1 congenitally absent, what will happen if the A2 is blocked? Sorry, what will happen if the opposite A1 is blocked? There is nothing to supply, right? From no collaterals and nothing else can supply this, right? So both the A2 territories are affected. Can you clearly see that? Both the A2 territories are affected. So what will happen? Both the lower limbs will be affected along at the cortical level itself. So both the lower limb will be affected and cortical sensations are absent. So it's called as paraparesis or paraplegia. Okay, this is called as unpaired ACA syndrome. Okay, so our anterior cerebral artery is over. Just a small revision. So as we know, yeah, so internal carotid artery goes inside the foramen lacerum, divides into the middle cerebral artery and anterior cerebral artery. The anterior cerebral artery divides into A1 and A2 by the anterior communicating artery. This is A1, this is A2. When there is a block in A1, the opposite side A1 supplies, so patient is asymptomatic. When there is a block in A2, that part of brain supplied by A2 is affected. What type of, what segment of brain? So it's seen here in the homunculus. Okay, you see that the frontal area and the leg area is affected, the opposite side leg. So when there is a block in A1, asymptomatic, A2 opposite side lower limb is affected, cortical sensation of that limb is affected along with the frontal changes. Okay, some people will have artery of Hubner. Artery of Hubner supplies the internal capsule, which that supplies the face and upper limb. So when artery of Hubner is affected, face and upper limb of opposite is affected at the internal capsule level. So cortical sensations are intact. So in people, A2, if A2 is affected along with the artery of Hubner, because of A2, opposite lower limb is lost. Because of artery of Hubner, upper limb and face is lost. So totally patient will have hemiplegia. But since lower limb is affected but at the cortical level, cortical sensations are absent in lower limb and face and upper limb are affected at the internal capsule level. So cortical sensations are intact. Okay. So in some people, the A1 will be congenitally absent. So even then they will be asymptomatic. In such individuals, if the opposite A1 is affected, both the A2 will be lost for the supply. Okay, so both the lower limbs will be affected and cortical sensations are lost. Okay, this is paraplegia, unpaired A1 syndrome. Now coming to middle cerebral artery. Okay, as we know, this is the middle cerebral artery. The internal carotid artery enters the base of skull through the foramen lacerum and divides into the in middle cerebral artery and anterocerebral artery. This is middle cerebral artery. This middle cerebral artery is divided into M1 and M2. Okay, this is M1, this is M2. You can see M1 has lot of penetrating branches and M2 is divided into superior M2 and inferior M2 division. Okay, M2 superior division and M2 inferior division. Okay, we'll just zoom this. Yes, like this. Can you see lot of penetrating branches in the M1 and there is a superior M2 division, inferior M2 division. We'll add some brain substance to this picture. It looks like this. Okay. Can you see that M1 without any branches, with much big branches, without any penetrating branches, and M2 is divided into superior and inferior grossly. So now there is a clot in M1, sorry M2 superior division. This is M2 superior division. How will be the presentation? Number one, watch closely, dear friends. M2 superior division supplies the Broca's area. So if the Broca's area is affected, word output will be less. Word output deficit will be there, right? Number one. Number two, hope you remember the homunculus. Except the leg, the entire trunk and the face, upper limbs were supplied by the middle cerebral artery. Okay, that is this division only. So the person's face, upper limbs, the trunk will be affected. Okay, but also understand, dear friends, it is not a very clear-cut rule between the ACA and MCA. I told you, as per the homunculus, the anterior cerebral artery supplies the legs. We saw the homunculus, right? It's not very strict, okay? Some amount of blood from the middle cerebral also supplies to the legs. So when that middle cerebral artery component is lost, minimal weakness may be present in the lower limb also, okay? So now, when the superior division of M2 is affected as shown in the picture, what will happen? Broca's aphasia will be there, number one. The face and the upper limb will be affected severely, okay? The power will be very much lost, and lower limb may be weakly lost because of some supply will be weakly lost. So patient will have Broca's aphasia, faciobrachial severely affected, and some minimal affectedness of the lower limb. And please remember, everything is happening at the cortical level. So the legs, upper limb, face, everything, there will be cortical sensations absent. Okay. Now, if it's a non-dominant hemisphere, you will have apraxia, hemineglect, visuospatial orientation loss, and cortical sensory loss. Okay. Now, when there's a block in the inferior division of M2, what will happen? See, inferior division of M2 supplies the Wernicke's aphasia. That will be verbal diarrhea. They won't be able to first comprehend properly. Okay, so they will try to even confabulate. They won't be able to comprehend. They won't even able to understand what you say. So it's called Wernicke's aphasia will be there. Along with that, at the temporal level, some optic nerve fibers are also passing through. So patients will have Wernicke's aphasia and superior quadranopia. Okay, so now M1 is affected. What will happen if M1 is affected? If M1 is affected, there is no branches of M2, there is no branches, superior branches, inferior branches, entire hemisphere gets affected, Broca's aphasia, Wernicke's aphasia, the upper limb, face, even the lower limbs, everything gets affected, right? So basically it's a huge infarct and the brain goes for a swelling. So patients mostly will be unconscious or very much drowsy for you even to examine what is happening, right? So if at all they are conscious enough to be examined, they will have Broca's, Wernicke's aphasia, their upper limb and lower limb both will be involved, okay? So otherwise, if the penetrating branches of M1 are involved, that is lenticular triad branch, you can have hemiplegia, and some branches are even pure motor hemiparesis, that is the motor fibers to the intercapsule. There can be even pure sensory hemiparesis if the thalamic branches are involved. Ataxic hemiparesis if the fronto-ponto-cerebellar fibers are involved. Clumsy hand dysarthria syndrome if the genu part is involved. Okay, there are multiple penetrating branches from M1 that supplies all these things. When each and every of those penetrating branches are affected, that part of the presentation will be present. Okay, remember, this penetrating branches of M1 does not affect the cortex, so there will be cortical sensation will be intact, and it's not the brainstem also, right? So no brainstem features at all. These are M1 penetrating branches. See the contradiction here, friends. In A1, if A1 is affected, not much changes. But if M1 is affected, the entire brain can go for swelling and the patient even can be comatose. Okay. So I have seen, don't worry about this small font size. Okay. Having said there is hemiplegia, this patient can have hemiplegia, right? The A2 with atria fuminis will have hemiplegia, and lenticulate triad branch of middle cerebral artery M1 will have hemiplegia, and direct brainstem injury. I mean, not brainstem. I mean the M2, the middle cerebral artery stem. If that gets affected, also the patient can have hemiplegia, right? Or the M1. So how are you going to differentiate all these three things, dear friends? It's pretty simple. In the first place, A2 with atria fumina, patient presents hemiplegia, agreed. But In that case, arteria fibula supplies the face and upper limb at the internal capsule level. So cortical sensation will be present or intact in face and upper limb, but in the lower limb, cortical sensation will be absent because that A2 supplies the frontal cortex. So that's about the first diagram. In second diagram, it's a lenticular striate branch which supplies the internal capsule, okay, that affects the upper and lower limbs and face. So it is a level of internal capsule. So cortical sensations are intact at the upper limb, lower limb and face also, okay. And third is an M1. So if a M1 is affected, upper and lower limbs are affected at the cortical level itself. So cortical sensations are totally absent at the upper and lower limbs also. This is how you differentiate the three hemiplegias, right? Now coming to the posterior circulation, vertebral artery joins to become a basilar artery which gives rise to the posterior cerebral artery. The posterior cerebral artery gets divided into P1 and P2 by the posterior communicating artery. Okay, the P1 has some branches. So thalamo-geniculate branch at the thalamus, if it's affected, gets hemianesthesia. If it gets affected, the optic radiations, homonymous hemianopia results. This P1 branches to midbrain could be an exam question itself, dear friends. Midbrain means third nerve will be affected. Understand that. Okay. Element type of third nerve at the same side. Element type of third nerve at the same side will be affected. Along with that, if the perimeter tract is affected, it's Weber's. If the red nucleus is affected, it's called Benedict's. If superior cerebellar peduncle is affected, it's Northenagle. Okay. Right. So, how do you remember this? We remember as Western pyramid, red beans, and nothing superior. This is how we remember. Okay. Western pyramid means Weber for pyramidal tract, and red beans means red nucleus for Benedict's. Nothing superior means Northenagle for superior cerebellar peduncle. Okay. As simple as that. So, Weber's is pyramidal tract plus third nerve. So, ipsilateral element third nerve plus contralateral hemiplegia. Benedict's means red nucleus plus third nerve. That is ipsilateral third nerve plus tremor at opposite side. Northenagle means third nerve plus superior cerebellar peduncle. It means ipsilateral third nerve palsy plus contralateral ataxia. That's Northenagle. Okay. Cloud means no beans. If it's cloudy, no beans. So cloud syndrome is Northenagle plus Benedict syndrome, right? And next is subthalamic nucleus. If it's affected, then you can get hemibalismus, semi-purposeless movements, So hemibalismus. This is regarding the P1 branches. So there are two more very important syndromes here to discuss regarding the medulla. So we discussed the midbrain. Pons is literally almost the same. Coming to the medulla, there are two very, very important. One is a medial medullary syndrome and lateral medullary syndrome, right? We are discussing medial medullary syndrome just for you to understand how a lateral medullary syndrome be. Okay, it is often our practice to search for weakness of upper and lower limbs to classify a person as stroke. Okay, understand, dear friends, a person may not have upper and lower limb weakness or dysarthria to be classified as a stroke at all. Okay, so to be very clear, in medial medullary syndrome, there will be 12th nerve nucleus involvement and pyramidal tract involvement. Hemiparesis will be present, along with the fine touch vibratory sense all will be lost. This is medial medullary syndrome. Okay. Lateral medullary syndrome is very, very, very important. Understand that patient will not have weakness of upper and lower limbs of the body because pyramidal tract is present at the medial medullary syndrome, not in the lateral. In lateral medullary syndrome, sympathetic fibers can get affected, causing Horner syndrome. Okay, the meiosis, loss of sweating, ptosis and stuff. Nucleus ambiguous will get affected. 9th and 10th vagus nerves will be affected. And spino-trigeminal tract. Okay, same side face, pain and temperature lost. Spinothalamic tract, so opposite body, pain and temperature lost. Okay, pain and temperature lost in the same side face, opposite body. Same side face by spino-trigeminal tract, opposite side of the body by spinothalamic tract. Okay, pain and temperature. Then patient can come with vertigo, nystagmus and vomiting, and inferior cerebellar peduncle features. The cerebellar, basically ataxic features can be present. Understand, dear friends, some person can have just hiccups. That could be your only clue to diagnose a lateral medullary syndrome because of nucleus tractus alteris. You need to search for other findings in this case. Okay, so let's go for a quick revision. So as we know, the intercarotid artery enters the foramen lacerum and goes inside the brain, and this is A1, so nothing is affected, and this is A2, that part of brain that is supplied by A2 is affected. Okay, so putting the homunculus there, you see the legs is what that is getting supplied by A2 along with the frontal. So frontal reflexes are affected and crural monoplegia presents. So atria furna present only in some people, that supplies that part of internal capsule supplying the face and upper limb of opposite side. Okay, so when there is atria in human is affected, the face and upper limb of opposite is affected, but cortical sensations are intact. So when there is a block at the A2 along with the atria fubner, opposite leg is affected by A2 and opposite face and upper limb affected by atria fubner. So cortical sensations are intact in face and upper limb but lost in the lower limb. So if there is a block, if there is a congenital absence of A1, it's still asymptomatic. In such people, if the opposite A1 is also affected, both A2 will not get blood supply. So bilateral lower limb weakness will be present. This is paraplegia. Other causes of paraplegia are anterior communicating artery aneurysm or a meningioma exactly at that site. Okay, and this unpaired ACA syndrome. Coming to the middle cerebral artery. So this is middle cerebral artery. This is M1 and this is M2. M2 has superior division and inferior division. So M2 superior division, if it's blocked, Broca's aphasia, and the face and upper limb are affected very severely, cortical sensations are absent. Some amount of lower limb also is involved. Okay, little weakness in the lower limb. So if it is a non-dominant side, apraxia, hemineglect, visuospatial disorientation, cortical sensory loss will be present. So if it's a M2 inferior division, Wernicke's aphasia will be present, and at the temporal area, the visual optic tract is also passing, so superior quadrantopia will be present. So if at all M1 is affected, the entire brain of that hemisphere goes for edema and the patient can be unconscious. If at all the patient is conscious, severe upper and lower limb weaknesses can be present, Broca's and Wernicke's aphasias can be present, patient will be totally mute. Okay, so in M1, if the penetrating arteries are involved, depending upon which penetrating artery, the patient can have hemiplegia because of lenticular striate branch or the pure motor hemiparesis branch, or pure sensory hemiparesis by thalamic branch, or ataxic hemiparesis by frontopontine cerebellar branch, and clumsy hand dysarthria syndrome by genu, the M1 branch which supplies the genu. Understand, cortical sensations are intact and there will be no brainstem features. So the three usual types of hemiplegia were A2 along with atria fubner and lenticular striate branch of middle cerebral artery and the M1. So how to differentiate? If it's a A2 along with atria fubner, A2 supplies the lower limb, so cortical sensations are lost. Atria fubner supplies the upper limb and the face at the intercapsule level, so cortical sensations are intact at face and upper limb. Coming to the second picture, lenticulate striate branch supplies the internal capsule of the upper and lower limb equally. So it is at the level of internal capsule, so cortical sensations are intact both in the upper and lower limb. Next diagram is M1 or even the stem. So at M1, if it's affected, the upper and lower limbs are affected at the cortical level. So cortical sensations are lost both the upper and lower limb if at all the patient is conscious enough to be examined. Posterior circulation, the vertebral artery joins to form the basilar artery, gives rise to the posterior circulating artery, which is divided by the communicating artery into P1 and P2. P1 branches, thalamogenicate branch and midbrain branch and subthalamic nuclear branch. Thalamogenicate branch gives rise to the hemianesthesia or homonymous hemianopia. Branches of P1 at the midbrain. Midbrain means third nerve. So third nerve with the pyramidal tractus Weber, with the red nucleus is Benedict's, with the superior cerebellar pedunculus Northern. How to remember? Western pyramids. Weber for pyramidal tract. Red beans. So red nucleus for Benedict's. Nothing superior. So Northern for superior cerebellar peduncle. Okay. So in Weber's, pyramidal tract for third nerve. So ipsilateral third nerve palsy with contractile hemiplegia. Benedict's, red nucleus plus third nerve. So ipsilateral third nerve palsy and contralateral tremors. Northern ipsilateral third nerve plus superior cerebellar peduncle contralateral ataxia. Cloud syndrome is Northern plus Benedict syndrome. And if the subthalamic nucleus is involved, patient have hemibalismus. And the pons is almost the same. And coming to the medulla, it's the medial medullary syndrome and the lateral medullary syndrome. Medial medullary syndrome, patient can have the contralateral hemiparesis, okay, because of preliminary attack. Along with that, 12th nerve will be affected and medial limb will be affected, fine touch, vibration, joint position will be lost on the opposite side. In lateral medullary syndrome, please understand patient may not have the upper and lower limb weakness at all, okay. The components of lateral medullary syndrome are sympathetic fibers causing the Horner syndrome, nucleus ambiguous 9 and 10th cranial palsy, and same side face pain and temperature is lost, opposite body pain and temperature is lost, okay. Then vestibular nucleus symptoms like nystagmus, vertigo and vomiting, okay, and inferior cerebellar peduncle signs like ipsilateral cerebellar ataxia. Understand, patient can have just hiccups without any weakness. So you need to examine the patient clearly to find that this could be a lateral medullary syndrome. It's a posterior circulation stroke. Okay, so this is the basics of arterial localization anatomically of the stroke. Okay, keep revising this, friends. And that's all. We have come to the end of our presentation. And some people have requested me for ECG discussion also. So planning to create a WhatsApp group for ECG. Okay, so this WhatsApp group will be only for ECG discussions. No other topics will be discussed in that particular WhatsApp group. Planning to start in the mid-December. Okay, planning to start from the very basics and going to extend till up to arrhythmias and even the complicated things we are going to see. And it will be a WhatsApp thing only. So whenever you are free, you can go through what the material inside that, and you can ask freely. You can chat freely in the WhatsApp group. All your doubts can be put up, and we can have the discussions in that. And understand it's a paid program, and concessions available for resident students and paramedics also. And if you belong to these categories, you can send your ID card to my WhatsApp number so that you can avail the concessions. Okay. Thank you, dear friends. All the best. Good night. Sweet dreams.